Greta, it's great to be with you on your new show, or not so new show, but good to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I want to take a look back a little bit at Congress the last 2 years and now the new Congress. Comparing this Congress with the former Congress, can you tell me, do you have a sense that there's more bipartisanship, less, that you think you'll be able to work together, there's unity? Give me an overview.
Unfortunately, so far, there's been no bipartisanship, and Democrats have complete control over everything, House, Senate, and White House. They promised during the campaign, President Biden said he would work with Republicans. There's been not a single bit of that. And you look at the relief package right now that's moving through Congress, it's a completely partisan bill. They're using the budget reconciliation process, which means you don't have to have a single Republican. Every relief package we did 5 different relief packages on COVID-19 during the last year when President Trump was in office with a Democrat Congress and a Republican Senate. And every one of those bills was bipartisan. President Trump reached out to Democrats and Republicans, and it reflected in how successful it was at saving small businesses and helping families. And by the way, Operation Warp Speed, which was President Trump's initiative to find not one, but 2 vaccines for COVID-19 that were being distributed at a pace of about 1 million shots a day when President Biden took the oath of office.
So I see that there's a fracture between the Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill, and that it looks deeper than it was last term. Let me turn now to your party. There seems that there's quite a fracture within your party. We've witnessed in the past 2 weeks, we've witnessed the dissension created by the vote led by Congresswoman Liz Cheney in Wyoming. She's had a lot of criticism within your party, and you've got the situation now with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Tell me what's going on in your party.
Yeah, look, and for the last few months, this isn't something to sugarcoat. We had some real internal divisions leading up to the election, but especially after the election in the last 2.5 months, where we were struggling with some issues within different factions within our conference. And for a while, we were trying to get an in-person meeting. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's been hard to get that done, but we finally were able to do that. And just a few nights ago, we got together in a room for 4 hours, and everybody was very candid. I think very respectful with each other and very honest. I mean, the warts were all exposed, and we didn't sugarcoat anything, but we dealt with those issues. We talked through the issues, and then we walked out of that room a stronger group and a very united Republican conference that has differences. The Democrats have differences too, by the way, but we at least worked through ours, and I think we're much stronger today, definitely than we were a week or a month ago, and going forward to get the majority back and to battle for the soul of this country, to fight for the jobs that are being destroyed, eviscerated by the executive actions of President Biden just in his first few days in office. We're very focused on that, and we're going to be spending our time now working for the hardworking families of this country who are counting on us to stand up for them.
Well, it seems to me that we had 10 Republicans defect, for lack of a better word, to vote for impeachment, or the article of impeachment. You've now had 11 Republicans who voted to remove Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from the committee. So it seems to me that there's, the dissensions at least inching forward in another direction. It's not one unified party.
Well, to get every Republican to vote the same way on everything, as you know, is just not realistic. We worked to bring those numbers down. If you look, there were estimates that there would be over 40 Republicans that might have thought about voting to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene. It ended up being 11. I voted against removing her. And look, she did, I think, a very strong job of showing contrition, of saying, look, I've made mistakes in the past. And she held herself account for them. She apologized for those things. And my God, I mean, if we live in a country where you can't even apologize for things you've said in the past, and have other people be willing to forgive you, that's a scary place, And so I think I'm glad she did those things, and she shouldn't be punished by Democrats for things she said before she was in Congress, when in fact they're not even holding themselves accountable for things they've done while they've been in Congress. Divisive statements, inflammatory statements, inciting violence against other people, sleeping with Chinese spies, for God's sake. They haven't even acknowledged those things, let alone hold themselves on the Democrat side accountable. So, she apologized. And if they want to stand in judgment of others, look, there's only one person that's going to judge me, and that's my Savior, Jesus Christ.
In terms of her being removed from a committee, there's a very narrow division between the Republicans and Democrats numerically. In terms of the Democrats' majority is rather slim. Do you anticipate, should you be fortunate enough to get the majority 2 years from now in the midterm elections, or 4 years from now, would you support Republicans removing Democrats from committees if the Republicans were majority, or would you let the Democrats choose their own members of the committee?
Well, Greta, the Democrats started a very dangerous precedent with what they did with Marjorie. It had never been done in the history of Congress before, where a majority party removed members of a committee that the minority party selected. Each party selects their members. You're given an allotment. And so if you have 25 members of a committee on the Republican side and 35 on the Democrat side, each party picks their members. It had never been done before where they removed someone of another party. What I would like to say, and look, clearly, if they want to set that standard, do they really want to be held to that same standard? I heard from a lot of Democrats privately in the last few days who did not want to go down that road. Unfortunately, they did. They opened this Pandora's box. But in the meantime, I really think our energy right now needs to be focused on fighting for those hardworking families who are under attack, where their jobs are being taken away. They've literally trying to eviscerate the entire energy industry in America with hypocrisy, by the way, Greta. I mean, you got the climate czar, John Kerry. It's exposed now that he was flying around the world on a private jet to accept awards about carbon emission reductions when his own carbon footprint's probably, he might get the award from Exxon for the most carbon emitted.
Are you suggesting, though, I mean, just the direct question is that, are you saying now that if you were in the majority party, that you have now seen the door open, and if you saw someone as unfit who is in the minority party, Democrat, on a committee, that you would have no problem telling the Democrats removing that person from the committee? Have we changed the rules for good now?
I was clear yesterday that I think it's a mistake for the Democrats to do what they did. I'm not going to say what we'll do when we get in the majority. I'm focused very much on us getting the House back in 2022. And frankly, I think they've helped us do that, not only by the radical socialist left shift that they've taken and the jobs they've eviscerated. They're opening our borders. President Biden literally prioritized illegal aliens to get the vaccine for COVID over some Americans who've been waiting for months. They've done all that in their first few weeks. And so you're seeing so many people, I think, have some buyer's remorse, and it's going to help us. We're getting great recruits, by the way, that already want to run in 2022. That's where my focus is. We're not going to put the cart before the horse and go, hey, let's measure the drapes for 2022. Our focus right now is fighting for those hardworking people who are counting on us, and then focusing on the things we have to do to recruit really good candidates to win the House back. Like we got great recruits last cycle who flipped 13 seats to Republican when they were expecting, the experts were saying we were going to lose 15 seats. You do that through hard work, fighting for the families who expect us to fight for them, and then recruiting great people to join this team.
Two questions. One is, do the Republicans intend to replace her on those committees? Do you have the authority to, or will those be empty seats on the committee for this Congress? That's the first thing. And secondly, is there any discussion within the Republicans' conference about putting her on other committees, and do you have the authority and the ability to do that at this point?
Well, the steering committee is the group on the Republican side that makes those selections, and so I'm sure we're going to reconvene to talk through what happened this week, as well as there's still a special election and an outstanding race in New York. Think about this, Greta. Right now, Claudia Tenney is a Republican who won her race in New York 3 months ago, and they still haven't certified her election. She's still not even been allowed to be sworn in as a voting member of Congress. And by the way, she's ahead today by more votes than she was the day after the election. And yet Democrats still won't seat her. That's a problem that we are focusing on, but everybody in the country ought to be outraged that there's a district in the state of New York where the state won't certify the election because a Republican won the seat, and there's no representation at all in Congress for those 750,000 people. I think that's a disgrace. And so I want Claudia sworn in, and then I want to make sure we put her on good committees. So we're going to have that discussion about that soon.
Does that mean that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but is she going to be on any committee likely, or put on any committee by the Republican Party during this Congress?
Well, we're going to talk about what other roles she can play, and I think she talked about that a little bit in her press conference, where she said she's going to have more time on her hand, but she wants to build a movement to go in and fight for the hardworking people who've been left behind. One of the things that President Trump was so successful at was igniting so many people, millions of people who had just given up on Washington because they didn't think Washington was fighting for them. And then he started fighting for those people, getting their jobs back, bringing things back to this country. And so there's still a need to have a battle for those folks that we're making sure that they are represented in Washington and back home in their states.
She said that she wants to move the Republican Party more to the right, and she also said that these are my words, I'm glad she's off the committees because she's going to have more time, suggesting that being on committees as a minority in the minority party is a waste of time. What do you think about being on these committees? What are your thoughts or response to her on that?
Well, I think it's very important to be on committees. She wanted to stay on her committee, and I thought she articulated that really well on the floor. In the end, the Democrats removed her, but that frees up her to have more time to do other things. But the work done in committees is very important, whether you're in the majority or minority party, to point out if they're moving legislation that's bad for the country. Committee is the best place to expose that. You can on the floor, but you have much more limited time on the House floor. There's a lot more time in committee and a lot more ability to try to offer amendments. Nancy Pelosi has almost completely shut down the ability for Republicans to offer amendments on the House floor. But in committee, you still have the opportunity to bring those amendments forward. So that's going to always be important to do that work. It's unfortunate that she was removed from having that ability, but that does mean she has more time to do other things and articulate her voice in different ways.
All right, let me hit something very personal with you. Mardi Gras. Now with COVID, you represent a good sliver of New Orleans. How's Mardi Gras going to be celebrated this year?
Well, unfortunately, it won't be with floats on the streets. I ride in the crew of Bacchus, and it's a great group, and there are a lot of people that do wonderful things for the community, and it's a great way for people in New Orleans to come out and bring their families. My dad and mom brought me out to parades when I was a kid. We bring our kids out, and people miss that. But what you're seeing right now, and this is the way New Orleans works, we don't let anybody hold us back. A lot of people have decorated their houses as if it was a float. And there's hundreds of houses, if not more, that you can see their websites that show you, and people drive through, and we brought our kids through a couple of neighborhoods, and it's phenomenal how extravagant some of these houses are. People go all out, and the spirit of New Orleans will never die. It's unfortunate we won't have an in-person Mardi Gras. We've got to get that back next year. We've got to get all of those things back going throughout our country, safely reopen schools, get our businesses back open, get Mardi Gras back again too. So, we miss it in person, but we're actually having a different kind of Mardi Gras this year. We're not going to be denied that spirit.
I thought that your Saints would be in Lambeau Field for my Packers. That didn't happen. So one last question: Bucks or Kansas City Chiefs?
I had to wear a Bucks tie this week because I did lose a bet with my friend Gus Bilirakis from Tampa. But in the end, I'd love Drew Brees to come back. If I can make a personal plea, just one more year, Drew. He's been phenomenal, great person, great leader for our team. But I think maybe there might be Tom Brady fatigue. The guy's too good. Maybe he'll be playing in the Super Bowl 20 years from now. But I hope it's a close game. And I'm just disappointed that the Saints won't be there. I would have loved to go to Lambeau and beat the Packers, but hopefully Aaron Rodgers comes back too. He's a great talent, but I wish Drew came back as well.
Congressman, thank you very much. Good luck, sir.
Thank you, Greta. Great being with you.